that also comes down to like, I don't know. I'm trying to transition into the next question because I want to ask you about. We've been doing some cognitive mapping, and we want to try to I guess conceptualize what your cognitive maps would look like, and I therefore want to ask you what do you consider the essential characteristics of Star Wars? So I see you've made a collection of parts here from Star Wars. Can you explain to me how your the decision making for this process is? You've laid out these cards. Tor has these playing cards with Star Wars images on them. So where do you start here?
So I start from the middle and then I sort of move my way out. So in the center we have Luke Skywalker, Leia and Han Solo, because I feel like that's the original trilogy, and then those are just the people who started the whole Skywalker saga. And then of course you have Darth Vader sort of to the side in relation to Luke, and then also his family, sort of you have Anakin and Padme here, and then Obi-Wan, who was Anakin's master, and Qui-Gon Jinn, who was Obi-Wan's master. So you sort of move your way out with how they relate to Luke.
So like a family tree almost.
Yeah, almost like a family tree. And then you have how the important parts of Darth Vader, for example, was Darth Sidious, also known as Chancellor Palpatine. Spoiler alert. Because he was a great impact on Darth Vader, or Anakin's turn to the dark side. And then you have sort of components of the Clone Wars, and also just generally the Empire. I also brought in Boba Fett because, apparently he's a fan favorite, but again, he didn't say much in the original trilogy. But, once you have the Book of Boba Fett's show, you realize how big a deal of his backstory was, the Tusken Raiders, the way they took him in and sort of taught him the ways of the desert. And then, of course, you have his father, Jango Fett.
Controversial opinion. I think Jango Fett is cooler than Boba Fett.
Yes, because you see more of Jango Fett. He actually speaks in the prequels, so you get, and he's also the DNA for all the clone troopers. So of course Jango Fett would have more to say than Boba Fett. But anyway, then on the rebel side, you have Bail Organa and Lando Calrissian and Mon Mothma and sort of Yoda, and you have the big three: Chewbacca, C-3PO, and R2-D2.
So, from what I can tell, you've kind of split them in the middle almost, but also, if there is a distinction between the sort of evil side or the not good side, at least, the dark side, and the force side, the light side.
Yeah.
And so, but you think so, like you said, the original triumvirate is the most important. That's the core of the franchise.
To me, it is, because I don't believe there would be a story without at least, definitely Luke and Darth Vader, and then the rest is just add-ons to tell their story and why they act the way they do.
I find it interesting also that you've included a Tusken Raider because they're quite iconic in the Star Wars franchise. I would think that's, at least if I were to interpret this cognitive map, I would say that you can include like a Tusken Raider, not because they have any character or character development, but because they're so iconic, and you see them and it's almost like it's something to remember Star Wars by. Maybe the same with Admiral Akbar over here. Not an incredibly important character, but a very recognizable character.
Yes, definitely. The Tusken Raiders definitely have gotten more screen time now with both The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. Yeah. So it's an interesting decision thing to include them back in the Star Wars universe, to sort of expand on their story and their culture and their whole society, how they,
So I think that links in with like the whole glorification of Tatooine, right? And it's
Yeah.
one of the first like alien races we see
Yeah.
in the Star Wars
Yeah.
universe.
The glorification of Tatooine.
Yeah, they keep going. They just want to.
They
It's-
just won't
yeah.
leave Tatooine. I mean,
Leave Tatooine.
both the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett,
Yeah.
and I mean the Kenobi series will
Yeah.
take place
Oh, yeah.
on Tatooine. So, but that's also the birthplace. That's
Yeah.
one of the first actual planets that you see in
Mm.
the trilogy, the original
Yeah.
trilogy.
And
so
if-
it's sort of the birthplace of the whole.
I think also it's a lot of like Disney saying, "We know that place.
Yeah.
People will know it too. Let's go there."
Name recognition. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very powerful. And I think if you were to make a cognitive map of, let's say, the topos, the geographical mapping of Star Wars,
yeah.
you would probably put Tatooine
Mm.
probably in the
Center.
middle,
Center,
in the
yeah.
center of everything.
Yeah.
It's the center of the universe.
Yeah,
So it's like, yeah, I mean, there's, of course, quite a lot of other elements also to Star Wars than just these cards. Are there any other parts where you would also rank them that are not, these are all characters, so any other parts of the franchise you would also put into this map? Like the concepts from Star Wars.
definitely the whole Jedi order, the light, the Sith,
The
that's-
Sith.
and sort of this whole battle between light and dark. And I think, and I know that Tor mentioned lightsabers, but I couldn't care less. I mean, yes, they're cool. They say cool things, but that's not Star Wars for me. For me, it's this whole moral battle between the light and the dark.
But see, that's interesting how you can disagree
Yeah.
on that, and you can say, you know, that's not an important element to me because my interests are elsewhere. So,
Exactly.
and how about you, Tor? How would you do this kind of mapping?
I would definitely include lightsabers because I don't think there's anything as cool as watching droids being cut in half.
So where would you put lightsabers?
Well, like
If we talk the middle being the core
I
of
would
the
like
franchise.
have a blue and a red lightsaber crossed between Darth Vader and Luke.
Yeah.
But I think I very much agree with this mapping in general. I like all the elements over here of darkness springing from Darth Vader and Darth Sidious, with Count Dooku and Darth Maul and all the other kind of stuff. And that is on the other side. I think this is also like the core elements because the rest of the stuff that's left in the deck are like Ewoks and Jar Jar Binks and characters like Grand Moff Tarkin. I love Grand Moff Tarkin, but he probably isn't like one of the most important characters.
Sometimes I am reminded of
Go,
other
Peter
important
Cushing.
characters from Star Wars that I forgot the name of, and then you hear Grand Moff Tarkin. But interesting how neither of you included Jar Jar.
Oh, he's huge. I put
Oh,
him
he's
as the.
oh, he was
I did
hidden.
put him as the Joker because, and he's also the Joker on the card. Funny enough, because for some reason he is a big part of the prequels.
But that's the thing. You can't really deny that he's a big part
No,
of
I
it. But
can't.
is he a big part of your world? That's the thing.
I like to make fun of.
But that's also being a big
So,
part of it.
yeah,
you know?
I mean-
you can still like say that.
I
that makes him a
mean,
big
had
part
he
of it.
not been there, I wouldn't have cared. I mean,
Yeah.
the story would have been the same if he hadn't been there. But he just adds to this whole comedic relief that you might not. I mean, you haven't really met. I can't remember if you've met C-3PO in the prequels.
He's
Did-
in.
yeah.
Anakin created him.
That's true.
Oh.
He's
Oh.
there
But see,
naked
the-
on Tatooine.
That's true.
He's naked on
he-
Without his
Tatooine.
gold plate. Yeah.
So for me, Jar Jar Binks is just comedic relief.
Yeah.
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 Mm.
And I think it's funny, the background on this card, the Clone Trooper card is red, which I guess indicates that they're bad, evil. But I've seen the Clone Wars series and I've seen the Bad Batch. So for
Yeah.
me, the Clone Wars or the Clone
Yeah.
Troopers are
Yeah.
good people
Yeah.
because they're just doing what
Yeah.
they're told
I also
to.
think that's like one of the great things about the Clone Wars because in the movies they're just very disposable CGI clones in the background, but the Clone Wars actually make like characters out of them, and
Yeah.
it's even greater because like there's one actor who's playing thousands of clones and he manages to just with diction in his voice and of course, the look of these troopers to make them different enough to have distinct personalities, even though they're all clones of the same person. Which is also why the Clone Wars is so good, and there's entire episodes where it's just clones, not any Jedi.
Oh.
But yes, I agree with it. And I know, put in like the Force, the lightsabers. I think also a large part of me is like the war part of this. I think it needs conflict, and I love big space battles, and I prefer all the battles in the Clone Wars because it's between more equal military forces instead of this guerrilla tactics. The rebels, they always run and hide and shoot bazookas from the trees because they can't beat the Empire. And I don't think that's very interesting for like a conflict, at least not in Star Wars. So I really like the Clone Wars, and also 6th season of the Clone Wars, the 7 seasons with just amazing battles all throughout. So I think that's the most important part for me, and all the alien races and the sense of this being an entire universe and intergalactic world. So I also think it's very cool in both the prequels and like Mandalorian to see more world building, like how do people get from planet to planet? Oh, there's space buses they can take.
Space buses?
Yes, like space shuttles where people can travel intergalactic.
The Space Greyhound. Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, generally it's like all the movies and the Clone Wars that live rent-free in my head with all these characters around them.
Yeah. I agree.
And that's comes back to something I'd like to ask you is, do you consider some parts to be, more canonical? Or even like when you say Jar Jar, he could potentially just be deleted. He could just be undid from the franchise and you wouldn't miss him.
Maybe
so he's...
Like they did in the third movie.
Like...
Sorry.
No. It threw me off, but I'm back. What I was trying to say is, I want to ask you, Jar Jar is, to you, not essential to the canon because of this.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's essential to the canon. To me, the canon is the original trilogy. And I could easily just have... I'm glad that there are more movies and more TV shows and books to expand on the universe, but I also feel that the original trilogy sort of is sufficient enough, if I'm allowed to say that.
So if you were to rank it by canonicity, you would have the original trilogy at the very top.
Yeah.
And then what would you do with the rest of it? Like, would it
Then I would put the prequels for sort of the next sort of like outer rim, and then you have all the TV shows that would be way up there because, again, they're great because they expand on the universe, but they're not, and they are canon to me. But if I had to say that the core of this whole universe, it would be the original trilogy. Yeah.
To me, I'd say the original trilogy. Like I think the scale is from -1 to 1, right? So that's 1, and I also think the prequels, even though they're not all good, I would also put them at a 1. And I think I'd had something like Rogue One because I think it's like it's a nice added story. It explains away a plot hole, so it's not really necessary. But it's a good movie. I think it's actually one of the better Star Wars movies in general. So I would probably be like a 1.75. Solo, probably about a 0, maybe minus, because it's a cool story in itself, but like making the Star Wars story and trying to explain away everything about Han Solo in one movie just felt a little unnecessary. I like the visuals, but like as a Star Wars story, it feels flat for me. So it's like negative or null for canonicity. And sequels, maybe Force Awakens, I like that one. 0.25, 0.5. The others -1, big time. And I'd have Clone Wars at a 1 as well.
So when you say minus points for something, would you mean that you would rather that they just didn't exist?
Yes, I would. I don't know. Not pour bleach in my eyes, but I wouldn't watch them again. I wouldn't. When I watched them to see them again, but in my mind, I discredited them as being a continuation of the saga. I didn't want to think this was how it ended because it was so far away from my own expectations. and it completely ruined the entire arc of the original saga. So
Yeah.
I watched the first one because I enjoyed it, and then I watched the other two to just like, okay, how does it all flow when you watch them in a short amount of time instead of with 1 or 2 years in between, and it wasn't good. The first one was good, but I don't like the other two. And I think a lot of the other stuff, books, comic stuff, I don't really care about it, so there's just like, zero.
Yeah.
A lot of the other stuff.
That's I find that interesting. Also, when it comes to, maybe we could take this back to consistencies and inconsistencies in Star Wars, because that also is tied to canonicity. I think you could make it tied together like that, because are there parts of Star Wars that felt inconsistent to you in a way that affected your idea of the canonicity? Like, would the inconsistencies make you think that this is not part of my canon of Star Wars because of how inconsistent it was with the canon? I said canon like 5 times, so you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Blast off. I think we also talked about this before, but like there's a lot of the classic inconsistencies, like from A New Hope to the prequels, where, for example, Obi-Wan talks about fighting with Anakin, Luke's father in the Clone Wars, and says he gave this lightsaber to you, but you're like, that's probably like a lie to lessen the effect of what really happened. But also when he mentions the Clone Wars, it sounds like it was some kind of war they were in when they were fighting clones. And in the original trilogy, it seems like the Jedi religion was something that was lost like millennia ago, and only a few kept it up. But it was like 20 years ago that there were 10,000s of Jedis throughout the galaxy, but now everyone's forgotten them. Even the people, like, for example, Luke's uncle and aunt, who knew Jedi, somehow didn't educate him about what Jedi were. And he got the impression that we're long dead. Stuff like that. It just seems like the gap that they decided to have between movies doesn't really make sense when you look at it. And there's maybe something about the age of characters as well. Like, when Anakin takes his mask off, he looks like he's 70 years old, but he's like 40 or something. And
It's been a rough life.
yeah.
Same with Obi-Wan,
Yeah.
right? Like, he suddenly ages so
like,
fast.
Yeah, he's like white-haired while he's like.
But I don't think that when they made the first one that they would expect it to blow off the way it has, and expect, okay, let's do an Obi-Wan series 10 years after, which is 10 years before we meet Luke in A New Hope. So I don't think they thought about that. So yes, of course that's an inconsistency, but I mean,
unfortunate inconsistency.
yeah. If we had time machines, we could do like great consistency stuff.
Yeah.
But
Interestingly, no time travel in Star Wars. Of all the things that happen in Star Wars.
not yet.
Not
Maybe.
yet? Not yet?
Some interdimensional travel in Rebels or something. I thought that was a little bit of time travel.
That was a little bit of time travel,
Yeah.
actually.
A little bit of time travel.
That's-
See? You can always get out of a pickle if you have time travel.
Yeah, I think like one of the interesting things is that after Return of the Jedi, I think George Lucas asked Mark Hamill, would you be interested in like in 30, 40 years down the line to return and play Luke Skywalker as like an older master to a new generation of Jedi, which was actually what happened.
Yeah.
They just completely pooped over that project. It's mostly like the prequel stuff where you can't really get away from it because sometimes you explain stuff and sometimes it's perhaps too hard to explain why certain things are. Another great inconsistency, Darth Vader never recognizes C-3PO or R2-D2. He's two very trusted droids. And he created C-3PO.
But that's when we as fans can go in and say, let's fill the gap and say he
Yeah.
lost his memory or something, that he
Yeah,
lost,
yeah.
That sort of
Yeah.
recognition.
He repressed
I
it.
saw
Like
like a fan
cognitive.
theory because like C-3PO had his memory wiped, so he wouldn't remember. But
Yeah.
nothing happened to R2-D2.
No.
So I've seen people write that R2-D2 is just the most ride or die homie ever. So he never betrayed anything about Anakin to anyone, and didn't betray Luke to Anakin either. He's just like most loyal boy ever.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I don't know. I think did we talk about any other inconsistencies
No, I
before
mean,
and I don't know, like it's probably small stuff, but
Yeah.
that's the
details where people can get nitpicky about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think the most part is like the Jedi stuff, where it's like, okay, that's just a little stupid, but it doesn't want me to. It doesn't take me entirely out of the fiction.
No, and when you said earlier that so they kind of changed something that happens in the original trilogy to make it make sense in another part of the franchise. The whole thing about the Clone Wars, for example.
Obi-Wan having Yoda as a master, but then it was Qui-Gon in the prequel.
Yeah, like
never explained.
that's the thing. I'm thinking about how does this kind of inconsistency, like, does it affect your perception of the franchise? Does it make you like it less or not at all, or whatever happens?
Maybe it gives me maybe that's why I'm not a super fan of it. I'm more nonchalant and they can't even take their own storytelling serious. I don't maybe want to take this as seriously, but I just still enjoy it because it's very high spectacle.
I mean, I agree.
Yeah.
So I don't really pay attention to inconsistencies unless they're sort of an actor changes or that will be an entirely different thing. But
has there been an instance of an actor changing completely from one to another?
I think so.
I mean, unless it's the character is growing up. Yeah. But I don't know if anything that made you go, huh?
No.
Wait.
So.
I think they're too professional for that.
Too professional. George Lucas, too professional.
I'm not naming names, but
I think one of the only things I'm just legit confused about is in Attack of the Clones when Count Dooku has captured Obi-Wan. He's floating there on his his captivity thing. Count Dooku mentions that there's a secret Sith Lord that's ruling the Senate, and I never understood why he said that to him. He's referring to his own master who's gonna do all this stuff, and I don't know why he's telling Obi-Wan this stuff. And he's suggesting at it, but he's not telling him anything. So it doesn't seem like he wants to kill him, and he'll never tell anybody else. It seems like he's leading him on, hey, there's a secret Sith Lord. Why don't you investigate it? And it just seems counterintuitive to the whole plan. So I never got that part. I've always been very confused about it.
So either he's a blabbermouth, or he was,
I don't know,
kind of defecting to the other side.
But why? How could you do that after leading a separatist army and being the main face of the bad guys? That seems stupid.
Details.
Yeah.
I mean, I never miss a chance to name drop that I'm a Star Trek fan first and foremost. Star Trek forever, and the thing about Star Trek is that it's full of inconsistencies, and mostly due to the fact that it has 200 different writers over the course of 60 years. So it makes sense that there's inconsistencies, and that's why Trekkies kind of just accept it for the most part. I know that a lot of people are very nitpicky about it, a lot of Trekkies. There's a lot of infighting. But for the most part, at least from me, I tend to sort of just shrug and say, well, that's how it is here. And I get the feeling that maybe, you also have something of a similar experience, that there might be inconsistencies, but you kind of just say, it doesn't affect the overall image of Star Wars. It doesn't make me think less of it.
No, I think that's pretty much it.
We think more about just stupid decisions about narrative and stuff in the moment, or for example the biker gang in Boba Fett.
Yeah, that was weird.
There's a biker gang?
There's a biker gang on small, what do you call?
Tricycles?
No.
Tricycles. It's sort of like hover bikes.
Yeah, they're
hover bikes.
That little bike people in LA ride on.
Mopeds?
In Italy?
Yeah.
In LA?
Basically, hover mopeds.
Yeah,
hover mopeds.
They were cyborg stuff.
That's true.
That annoys me, but I guess you're it confuses me, but then you move on. But that I'm gonna go right about this joke. I don't like this.
But that it takes you out of the experience. It makes you
Yeah.
think that's not Star Warsian.
Yeah, yeah. And
That's not.
I mean, maybe it's just a new generation of Star Wars
Yeah.
so that we, you know,
Yeah.
another side, because we haven't seen that much of city life Tatooine.
Yeah.
So it could have always been.
yeah, yeah.
We don't know.
Just
But yeah,
the
it's
Boba
not.
Fett show.
Yeah,
I bet George Lucas, he's going to re-release the original trilogy. He's going to put a moped somewhere in the background of Tatooine.
he would.
That,
He would.
that maybe that's an inconsistency, but George Lucas going back
Yeah.
and editing the Star Wars
Oh,
movies
putting
and,
his
like,
little hands all over it.
doing so Han Solo doesn't shoot first
Yeah.
and shoots and just moving his head. That's annoying.
It
that
is.
That is annoying. That
And that's
kind
meddling.
of pisses me off because it's just
Yeah.
like a director editing his stuff for no reason and
Yeah.
including like wacky bad CGI in the background.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe we should wrap up things. Do you have any last comments? Anything you want to get into?
Is-
I think we've rounded many bases
Yes,
here.
will we discuss the story world map or just post that afterwards?
We're gonna post it
Yeah,
afterwards.
because we also our Hackney map I think
Yeah.
very much reflects our Star World map as
Yeah,
well.
exactly.
Because
Um,
I included some other Star World elements that we didn't really mention, but there's something like droids and stormtroopers and clone troopers and
that's
rebels. Do they need to be in this spaceships and space
I
battles?
mean, of course, you need to have spaceships. They're in space.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we should just. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, those are all just I don't even think about them when
Mm.
I think about Star Wars.
What
I mean,
about,
of
like-
course.
Oh yeah.
I mean, of course, there's going to be droids,
Mm.
and of course, there's going to be stormtroopers and space battles and
Yeah,
spaceships
aliens,
because
yeah.
it's in space and it's a sci-fi world and robots. Yeah,
Mm.
I mean,
Because I also like I just had a mind for some different themes that might be like relevant in. I think there's a lot of hope.
yeah,
Talk about hope a lot in Rogue One. Perhaps some family.
yeah.
Don't know if
Yeah.
fun. I think
Fun.
yeah, you need to. I think Star Wars always like focuses on fun, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't. It shouldn't just be like a very serious war drama. It needs to
Oh
have
yeah.
like
Oh,
That's why we have Jar. That's why we
Yeah.
have Jar Jar Binks.
Yes.
He brings the fun.
he brings the
and
fun.
In
Finn of
wartime.
course running around saying woo,
Yeah.
shooting his old stormtrooper buddies, having a
Yeah.
The party don't start until Jar Jar walks in. Ugh.
yeah.
But yeah, in general,
Mm.
I think that's also a telltale sign of Star Wars. It has to be
Mm.
comedic. It can't take itself too seriously, even though it's a space opera. And with that in mind, I think I want to sign off and say thank you for participating
Yes.
in Star Words, my podcast. Thank you for
Come
coming
back
in here.
Yeah.
Fridays at 11 p.m.
11 p.m.
11 p.m. till 11 a.m.
All right, all words.
Yeah.
Okay, good
Thank
night.
you for having us.
Yes.
Thank you.
And Steven, send us an email saying thank you if you listen to this whole podcast.
Oh yes, if you will listen this far, comment below. I can't think of anything.
Star Words.
Star Wars.
Yeah.
Just an email saying Star Wars.
Just do it. So thank you, and I'm gonna stop the recording right now.